Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg. It is the 9th day of April, 2025. Wow, this year is going fast for me. It sure is. And I had a really nice time in Florida. A lot of you know that I was in Florida. I did go to Mar-a-Lago again. And then I was all over the place. I was like Chicken Man. She's everywhere, right? So I was there. I was up in Tampa meeting with some people there. So lots and lots of meetings, very, very busy. And I just got to tell you guys that it's kind of a cool time to be alive. Nothing that we see is can be taken at face value. So we're going to have to think and delve into the area of game theory a little bit, and then it becomes a lot more fun. So I'm going to bring on my buddies this morning, Karen the Riveter, Ralph the IT guy. Today we have Liberty Essentials on. Bill will be on in a minute. And then I have on author Summer Cook, and she's been writing children's books. So how you guys doing this morning?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So how you guys doing?
Yeah, with what you were saying there too, don't take anything at face value. Remember that at this point, regular people have the computer hardware to be able to do AI fakes of stuff. That hardware has been in the hands of other people for a very, very long time, both for doing video and then even further back for doing audio fakes. So, and that's leaving aside that how many of them are actors.
I have to tell you guys about one I saw this week. It was a Facebook videos where I saw it, and there's a big whale coming up to the surface, and there was how cattle have a scratch system. Sometimes they have like a spinner with big bristles on it, and the cattle will walk up and get scratched all over their backs and stuff. Well, it was kind of like that, but it was coming off of this arm on a ship, and it had a spinner on it, so it was scraping the barnacles off of a whale. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. But then I started watching, and I'm like, it looks like that whale is really high out of the water. Like, is it dead? Is this a commercial whaling thing? And the more I watched, I was like, wait a minute, this isn't right. Got into the comments. I got into the comments, and someone said, this is what happens when you try to create a fake AI video of whale watching and you misspell it whale washing.
Oh, that's funny.
I thought that's probably exactly what happened.
That's funny. Morning, Bill. How you doing?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Glad you're able to join us. I didn't give you much notice because I was in Florida, and I was supposed to come back a little earlier, but I ended up having a reason to stay a little longer. So I got back in yesterday.
Oh, well, hopefully you had a good trip down there.
I really did. And it was interesting. I'll put, you know what, while we're talking here this morning, I'll put a few videos up on my Telegram channel, because I can tell you that these are for sure, because I was actually there. And what I saw, I got to meet so many nice people. There's always really nice people down at Mar-a-Lago. And I think I wish everybody will at some point in time have a chance to meet the people that really are working behind the scenes. So with that said, I'm just going to tell you right now, and I've said this for a long time, everybody's lying. Okay. There's so many games going on right now, and it really has to be that way. I think that the way we can be the most helpful, honestly, is just to do what we need to do to enjoy life, to be with our families. And there was a very interesting switch from last week to this week that I noticed. Do you remember when President Trump said we're in the next phase of the operation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. And I understand what that next phase is about. We're going to need to be a little helpful in the stability in the storm. All of us are. Okay. So I know it's really hard not to be angry. And I really had to do some introspection on myself, because I'm going to tell you this, and I really believe in just being real. I have been flat out so angry about everything that I've seen that's gone wrong. And I refuse to quit, not just the stuff that went on with my campaign and that sort of thing. It's a bigger issue than that. It's watching everything we love be attacked. That you know, I can honestly tell you that to go back and forth between being in a fight, a critical fight, to seeing people around us that we actually love and not having that carry over into daily life. It's a trip. It really is, because it's like whiplash all the time, right? We're all involved in it. We're all seeing that. We see things that are accelerating us and making us want to fight, because we should never stop fighting. But I think right now there's a lot that's been done behind the scenes, and a lot of the threats are perhaps not quite there anymore.
Yeah.
So now this is where we look at each other and go, you have every right to be absolutely furious about what's been done, what we've seen, what we've been learning and such. And, you know, I typically will go right to the fire, and wherever there's a threat, that's my space. Okay. I've got the warrior gene. I don't really think about it. It's like, go get rid of all of these things that are bad. But we need to balance a little bit and let the good guys carry out the operations and the cleanup that needs to happen. And we're part of the cleanup in our lives, and encouraging each other to say stuff like, we really didn't all of us know what was going on for years. It's not our fault. It's not anybody's fault. But just sit with people and listen to them. Let them off their anger and they're being upset about things a little bit. Don't take it personally, but be there to help walk people through it, because they have the right to be angry. We've all been in a state of trauma for a long time, but we're gonna need to not only kind of balance this out with seeing what's going on out there and saying, okay, I'm not putting up with this, but also on this hand, weighting this hand a little heavier and going, we're not alone here. There's a lot of people that are fighting. We're not alone. We don't have to do this alone. But over here, helping to give people a safe place as they are going to have to come to terms with the things that we have been engulfed in for years.
Mm-hmm. I heard somewhere a long time ago, anger is the energy for change. And I really like that. So that's another way out of it. And it's a hard place, because not everybody is suited for every battle. You know, Donna's trying to suggest, you know, I have a person of integrity. I should run for office. And I'm like, that's not my lane. It ain't happening.
No, I shouldn't run for office. Somebody else should do it. I hate politics. I'm just like dumb enough to jump in the fire, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think you have the fortitude, the intestinal fortitude, some people might say. And I'm like the backup singer. I am you used to say, what's the guy's name? You know, I did a meme with Johnny Carson, and I can never remember the guy that was. Yeah, I'm the guy who sits on the couch and laughs and, you know, pitches in sometimes, and that's kind of my role. I'll figure it out. There might be some other more active role at some point in time, but right now that's not my place. But everybody's got to find their role, and it's been interesting watching people try things. And, you know, like, I thought that the assembly was a great place for me, and for a while it was. I learned a lot. I don't believe in that anymore. But I learned some valuable lessons from it, and it shaped my perspective and put some filters in place that might be good for me. But it also, you know, it took a toll, and it helped me learn more about myself. And that helps me figure out what my lane is. What is my role to play? But I think everybody's got to kind of figure that out and rest in it and understand. It may take time for you to figure out what that is, and that's okay too. Like I used to say, if your only role to play right now is to be the best mom you can be, then do that. do whatever you're supposed to be doing right now, the best that you can. Because let me tell you, that single role right there, and we've talked a lot about dads too, doing those two things, it is a task in itself. Do that, but feel okay with it. It will be enough for now, but strive to learn more and be open to finding something more. Are you willing to enter into a lawsuit or join somebody in a lawsuit? Are you able to fund somebody who's doing something dangerous or risky? Are you willing to back up somebody else in some way? Join something. You don't have to become a Republican and join in the party system in order to start running for office if that's where you think you need to go. You don't have to do everything like everybody else. And finding your own role can be a challenge. It could also be exciting, but that helps to kind of diffuse the anger too. We can be angry at everything, like you said, that's happened, like, oh, Fauci and even Trump with the vaccines. Well, guess what? The military are coming back. Those military who had to leave, who felt compelled to leave, there is a process for them to come back. I just heard more about it the other day. I saw a post about it and shared it. So some of the things that cause the anger are becoming, there's accountability coming for it. It's in place or it's coming soon. And that should help. I see that every day and I'm like, wow, things are happening now. There's so much good things happening right now. And if you're not seeing it, you're not watching the right things. You need to shift a little bit where your input is coming from. Because I see it all the time. I'm just encouraged constantly.
Well, it's just like the tariffs. People that are against the tariffs have absolutely no knowledge of how the tariffs are actually going to achieve the long-term goal. This is an important part. It's like we're whining and sobbing about wanting the world to change here. I've got a great meme, and I think Ralph sent this over this morning. Thank you, Ralph. I put it up. Let's see if I can bring it up here. Everybody wants change until change happens. And then it's like, oh no, the sky is falling. Whatever shall we do?
I have been loving the blowback on the tariffs because it's so obvious that it's globalist funded. Because so much of it is just, it's like that. Oh, the stuff about the stock market's falling and such. Have you looked at what's falling? It's these big, huge companies that are largely owned not by Americans, largely by globalists. This is exactly where the losses needed to happen.
How many people are familiar with the movie The Princess Bride?
Oh yeah, one of my favorites.
I would assume everybody here is. I meet like 3 people a year who have never watched it, okay? And it irritates me. But that movie has a quote for every aspect of life, right? It's probably the most quoted movie of all time. And there's a spot in there where Wesley and Buttercup come out of the fire swamp and they meet with the king there, and then the king's right-hand man, the 6-fingered man. I forget his name now. But anyway, they take Buttercup back. She's trying to save Wesley's life. Yeah. And so he tells Wesley, it's like, we must get you back to your ship. And Wesley looks straight at him and says, we are men of action. Lies do not become us. Right? And that's the perfect quote, because those who are actually doers and not just complainers or talking heads, lies do not become them, right? They don't deceive the people one way and then do something differently. Even as Christians, we're called to operate in the light. We do everything out in the open. Even if we're wise as serpents or wise as doves and harmless as well, I'm sorry, wise as serpents and harmless as doves, we still do everything in the light. Nothing we do is done in the darkness because we live in the light, right? So I look at a lot of these things and I question a lot of them. And y'all know pretty securely where I stand when it comes to Trump and that whole administration. One of the issues I have when we talk about tariffs, and Donna, we went over this a week and a half ago now. I have to stand on the law. I have to stand on the Constitution because that's what governs our government in this nation. Without it, the government doesn't even exist. And it's the people that established it for government to exist, right? To protect their life, liberty, and property. When I see an executive branch of government, whether that be the president or any of the trade offices or heads of those departments, via any statutory law that they want to enact, when I see that being done, it is in violation of law, right? Trump a while ago says, "He who saves his nation violates no law," right? That's a quote from a man of old, and it's part of the maxims of law. However, our laws govern very clearly how it should be done. And what we have right now is an acting monarch that's enacting tariffs. Instead of, as Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 and Clause 3 of our U.S. Constitution clearly state that Congress, we, the people, gave Congress the authority over excises and imports. And we, the people, gave Congress the authority over foreign commerce, right? The president has very limited power. Very, very little does he do. One of the closest inactions that he can do as far as foreign aid or foreign commerce, and it shouldn't even be called foreign aid. I use that out of schooler. And that's found in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, is that he can enact treaties, right? But even treaties have to go through Congress. They have to be with advice and consent of at least 2/3 of the Senate, right? So I have a big issue with how things are being done. And are things starting to topple? Yeah, I see it. But if you look at how things were done in previous nations as well, when an elected official became a monarch and then later became a dictator, right? Because the people praised him and put him up to that. I mean, look, most recent history, you can look right at Hitler, right? The people loved Hitler in Germany. They put him in position. They put him in power. The churches praised him during that time, right? They propped him up as the political leader. And he was working in the same fashion. He started getting rid of things that the people despised, that the people knew needed to go, but he did it outside of their common laws. The issue with that is when all that was said and done, there was nothing to prevent him from acting as monarch, right? Because the people loved it. The people saw what was being done, and they allowed him that free hand to do more. Well, the problem is when you have a monarch, monarchs cannot tolerate any political dissent from the people, because if they do, they lose that authority, they lose that power. And thus they have to put away political dissent, no less than any of the dictators of the past have done. They become that dictator, and now you're run on a pure totalitarian system or an oligarchy, however you want to call it. And the people that are put in power are now attacking the people that put them there to silence the voice that they might not stand against them. If you look at my image, and I don't have my camera on today because I'm kind of in a bad area. It doesn't work right now. But if you look at my picture today, you'll see the political spectrum, right? And this was used back when the Tea Party movement was very large, before the DeVos money bought infiltrators and put them in there, and they propped them up to positions of power, and they ended up destroying the Tea Party from the inside out. But if you look at that image, you'll see the political spectrum is not left-right. It's not red-blue, right? We talk about this all the time. It's more aligned in a circular fashion, right? At the bottom, you have Antichrist. Okay? At the top, you have Christ-like, right? That should be the goal of each individual, is to be Christ-like. That's what we're called to do. Be holy, be perfect, right? On each side of that, you'll see the ring, right? The farther down you get, you start in an oligarchy. right? On the left side, you have tyranny. On the right side, you have anarchy, right? Either one could fit into an oligarch category. And then as you continue up, you will find towards the top, you'll see the American form of government. You'll see our republic there, where we have liberty and we are ruled by law, right? That is the essence of how we were established. We are to be ruled specifically by law. When I see laws being violated, I have a big problem with that, and I get indignant about it. I don't get angry at the individual. I could care less about that. When you were speaking about anger earlier, I don't have to get angry at the issues because my king is in control. My God still rules and reigns, but I'm called to call it out because, as we know in Isaiah, when the inhabitants of other nations of the world, when they see judgment, they will learn righteousness, right? I was just reading somewhere this morning. Oh yeah, in Deuteronomy. We're in Deuteronomy, where God told the nation of Israel, the people of Israel at the time, he told them that they are to establish justice and judgment, right? And it says, if you do this, the nations will fear you. Why? Because they know you are not going to tolerate anything other than that. And it's pretty clear in past times that when they left that off, he brought the nations in just like he said he would as a curse to destroy them. So, yeah, when I see America violate law, that's what I have to look at. I look at the same history of where we came from and what our founding fathers wouldn't tolerate either. And it's no less, I think Ralph also sent out a meme with the regarding the Supreme Court. You know, people that want Trump to run a third term or Trump to run indefinite terms because of whatever. And then that's compared to the Supreme Court, right? Because they can have up to lifetime terms. And even though I understand the meme in that regard, it does not follow the concept of the republic, because nobody in our Supreme Court and justice system is actually lifetime servants. They're not lifetime elect. They're not or lifetime appointed, right? Our Constitution gives us clearly the right as the people to impeach them, because they only are there when they stand in good behavior. So why do we have Supreme Court justices who are clearly in violation of the law and clearly not understanding the foundation of law or what they're supposed to be judged on? Because the people do not see that. They do not understand it. They don't know the foundations, and therefore they allow it to continue and leave them there, even though they're operating well outside of their jurisdiction, well outside of their authority, and operating in bad behavior. But the people don't understand that they are to be removed. And those representatives who refuse to remove them should be done in the same likewise manner, right? And that all goes back to getting out of this political paradigm of right-left. Just because they want to say that the so-called left is in power, that they can act like their own law and enact legislation to do whatever they want, or when the right side's in power, that they can act as their own law and enact any legislation they want, it's absolutely absurd. We are governed and ruled by law. When they act outside of that, I don't care which political party you want to band yourself to, when they operate outside of that, they are lawless and to be removed. I don't see Congress as red, blue, left, right, Democrat, Republican, independent, or anything. I see them as individuals, as representatives of the people, no less than our founding fathers and previous presidents have. So when they act in such manner, they are to be removed. And the same extends to the executive branch of government, right? I'm one of the few who were willing back in Trump's first term to call out impeachment for Trump, not because of some Russian hoax. What a facade that was, but because of the violation of constitutional rights, the violation of the Second Amendment, namely, first and foremost, the violation of the First Amendment, even more currently, calling for the death of those who speak out against another nation, namely that of the nation of Israel, right? That all came out of Trump's mouth. I don't have to look at what's being said publicly. I can look at the actions that are being done, and I find violations all the time from almost everyone that is in any amount of political theatrics that we see going on at our federal level.
And that's the thing, isn't it? The theatrics. I've been calling it a fake Congress. The whole thing is fake to me, because when you know the elections cannot be counted on, none of them can be really counted on. So they don't seem to have weight of authority properly to them. So I get what you're saying, and I appreciate that, because you're always going to say this isn't right, and you are correct. And I think it's good to speak up out about it, because people need to recognize what you're saying for future use, especially. I think there are a lot of Supreme Court battles that are on the way. A lot of things. I think that, for example, the tariffs. If there are congressmen, women, quote unquote, who are fake, not really elected, or even outside of Congress, that sue on the issue of tariffs, it's going to take time for that to work its way through the court system. Eventually, the Supreme Court may check Trump and say, you don't have authority to do that. That belongs in Congress. And the people are going to go, what? But I think by that time, the tariffs will have served their purpose.
What if,
and so I think a lot of these things, I agree with you. You should absolutely speak up when you see something wrong. What's that?
Keep going. There's a lag here, but keep going.
What? Oh, okay. I think a lot of the things that are happening now are serving a specific purpose.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here. So what if
to help us get to a point?
What if we
where when we speak up, we have.
Karen, your audio is getting kind of weird here. Hang on just a second. Maybe it might need to catch up a little bit. But I think to your point, Karen, and I understood what you were saying, is that what if because we really were taken over. Our country was infiltrated and taken over. So things may not be exactly what we think they are either. And in the process of taking it back, I mean, what if we've already been attacked by a foreign entity who has absolutely invaded our government and has been off the rails for a long time? How do we know who's actually in control right now? And I think there's a lot to question here. Do we need to know right now, as we're watching this war on our soil? I would like to. I'm going to tell you that. Is the military in control? Are we going through a period of time that's in uncharted waters? I'm really at that point right now where I really think that's exactly where we are. And so we're seeing things that are kind of seeming off the rails in order to bring us back to what we should be. In a war, nothing is absolutely clean. There's some messiness to it. But how do you fight an enemy that's got capture of the judicial system, the Congress, the executive branch, the states, all the way down into our communities? Do we sit here like the British and hold a line and watch ourselves get slaughtered? Do we grab our squirrel guns and shoot from trees? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying go out and shoot anybody. That's not what I'm saying. But that's don't go into Stupidville on me, anybody out there, right? It's like when we're in a situation where our country has already been infiltrated and capture education, capture regulation, all kinds of pretended legislation, unconstitutional laws, more of them than we could ever even imagine. We're choking on this stuff. Our country has been choking. How do you get it back to the point where we're not choking and dying to get it. And I think to your point, Bill, to everybody's point here, is that we have to understand exactly where we are. And this process of discovery for us as Americans is critical, because as we take down some of this really bad stuff of infiltration and stuff going on, we're going to have to be educated enough to self-govern and know what it is. But I really think that right now it's kind of a crapshoot where we're at.
And I would argue
Well,
too that
I think
with the term limit kind of discussion, in that meme, is that we've also kind of lost the original philosophy of Cincinnati, of get in, get the job done, and go home. Don't strive to have a 70-year-long political career. It's not how it's designed. And we've also lost a lot of the safeguards that we put into place to keep this country as a republic and have time delays in the different positions to help with stability in favor of the current situation, which I would argue we've already put way, way too much authority in the executive branch over the years. And at this point, it is kind of showing people how much that power has been concentrated through basically everyone just going along with what we've been sliding toward as electing effectively a dictator. And this is not something against President Trump. This is against that office as it has been implemented for decades at this point.
Just so everybody knows, I've gotten a few feedback saying the feed keeps getting cut. Every time you speak, Karen, you're coming in and out. So we're going to have to probably slow the speech down for some reason, or I'm going to see if the down detector if we've got a systemic problem out there, which is what I suspect this morning. Just so you know.
I've almost lost all audio here. I'm going to leave and then come back in because I can barely hear anybody.
Okay, and Karen, you might want to do that too, because you've been coming in and out a little bit. So when you speak, so we're gonna try to thank you for giving me the feedback on that, Leb. I think that there's a systemic problem going on out there. I'll pull up down detector in a little bit and we'll see what's going on. So see if this is just one more of their nice little attacks that they make on us. That it just sort of happens whenever we're talking about something important. Then you'll watch me say the word China. We'll always go out with that one. So
so as far as like the time delay in the different positions, we've already gotten dangerously close to being fully a democracy instead of a republic. The president is not supposed to be directly elected, and neither is the Senate. The Senate is supposed to be there to speak for the governments of the states, whereas the House of Representatives is supposed to be representing the people. And instead, we've gotten this direct election of Congress on a national level. We've got direct election of the president on a national level. And so, the argument now is that the only defense we have against a chaotic turnover every 4 years of our government is the lifetime appointments at the Supreme Court. And it's like, why? There were safeguards in place before, and we've abandoned those.
Well, I really think it's important to remember that we have been invaded. All of the offices have been invaded. They put their pretended legislation in place. And if the military, let's just say the military is in control, they're going to have to use irregular warfare to get it back and tear down all of these structures that we can't get through by using the normal chains that are supposed to be there. And so if, we've gone through it for I don't even know how much time, the economic invasion of our country, we can't even or couldn't even spin up manufacturing right now because it was all shipped over to China and India and every other country on the planet because they've destroyed industry in this nation. We're going to have to cut some of these ties and bring the industry back. Not that we can't. Americans are innovators, but they've basically and effectively blocked we the people from having a voice through cheating in our election and installing their puppets who have a reason to be in there and take advantage of their connections and how they unjustly enrich themselves. We have laws that shouldn't stand. We can't use the judicial system to go after the laws or the Congress or the legislature because they're all in on it together. And now you've got all of the economic means that are out there that have basically captured everything. And it's like a big flush through all of these treaties and everything else that they've signed of everything that we love. So to me, I'm just kind of like, if I've almost got to go with it. The military's in charge and that they're using whatever method they need to bring this back to a constitutional republic.
Well, and you said it before on the show, and I think everybody agrees, and you even mentioned General Flynn has said this as well, that local action has a national impact, right? All politics starts locally. And by politics, what I mean is civics, right? We use the word politics all the time, and people are like red flagged by that word. But what I actually mean is civics, as in your civic duty as an American, as a free man under God living in America. This is your civic duty. It's not your political duty, right? A body politic is merely a group of individuals all consenting to be governed in one way or another to further a specific purpose or agenda that they want to accomplish, right? Read the Mayflower Impact, the Mayflower Compact, and you'll understand exactly what the settlers originally had designed for their body politic. All of our founding fathers have gone into this and explained it as well. But I tell you, I have a hard time because the majority, and I say majority of people in America want to have their eyes focused on the federal government. They want to have their eyes focused on who's president. Some of them will even look to Congress, and some of them, especially here, will even look to the Supreme Court, right? I've said it before. I don't really care what the federal government does or doesn't do because almost everything they do is outside of their scope of authority at this point. And I don't see that being corrected in any way, even with the military, if the military is in charge, because I look at as who's being propped up as heads of the military, and I see just tons of abominable people who are just absolutely reprobate, that don't understand the purpose of the military. And not only that, but they exist in a time where there's no declared war. So most of the standing military is even unconstitutional at this point. If they're unconstitutional, I can't expect them to hold to the Constitution they swore an oath to, right?
Oh, but it's perfectly constitutional because Congress keeps renewing their authorization every 2 years, right?
That's my point, Ralph. Yep.
That's precisely in line with the idea of not having a standing army is to have a standing army.
Yeah. Except for the Navy and specific land forces, when called into duty, there is absolutely zero constitutional authority for military to exist in America, let alone all of our 700 and some military bases across the world, right? Here's another thing. We just saw the military budget that was just passed, right? We just added another $1 trillion, the largest military budget passed in history, $1 trillion to the national debt, right? To support our military. You know how much of that could be done away with if we would get out of other countries since we have no authority to be there anyway? You wouldn't need that budget, first and foremost. Second most, all of that should return to the states, right? Everybody knows. Let's use that big red demeaning word that they've been cursed since the Oklahoma City bombing. Let's use the term militia, right? The people. There is your military. If we want to say that the military needs to be in control and they need to stand and do something, let's look to the people, because the people are the militant force of this country, not some standing army. And those people that look to the federal government and want to complain about all the big issues that they don't know how to handle or how to how to tackle in any way or what to do about them, right? Because a lot of them don't. They just see the problem. Let's get our eyes off the federal government, look to our states, right? If you can't handle that because there's so much corruption, get your eyes off the state, go to your county, right? Now, listen, most counties are so corrupt that you're going to be fighting that and banging your head against the wall. If you can't handle that, get your eyes off the county. Focus on your township or your city, your municipality, right? Because it is the first line of defense against your absolute God-given rights. Okay. I love speaking in groups and asking the question. Raise your hand. How many people can name all of their township elected board or their city board members or their councilmen? So few people can do that, yet they can tell you who's president. And a lot of times the majority of the corrupt in Congress and the Supreme Court, right? But it is the local impact that is going to make this difference. And if we want to actually make a change in this nation, let me tell you an easy way to do it. Number one, we educate the next generation properly. I actually called into a radio show yesterday and I ranted and raved about this. How many churches in America back in 2018, 2019, 2020, and up to currently, how many of them used to have schoolrooms? I can name several that I've been to that closed their schoolroom down within the last decade because I don't know, whatever excuse they want to have. Either they got tired or couldn't find anybody to do anything. But nonetheless, they left the children back to be put into the indoctrination camps, to be subjected to everything unlawful. And the parents won't even protect their own children. It's a form of hate. That's really what it is. When people send their children off to these indoctrination camps to be raised up by the people that they know is the enemy. Okay, and I'm not saying all of them, but the stuff that they teach is being provided by none other than the UN agendas, none other than through the WEF, the global, what is that other place called? I can't think of it right now. But all of these different NGOs, right, that the U.S. is submitting itself to, namely every president of late has sold out our sovereignty to these NGOs. They're the ones that are that are directing education over numerous generations now, and parents are giving up their children to be raised by them. It's absolutely absurd. So number one, we educate the next generation in what is proper, what is lawful, and what is their duty in government. And yes, I'm even talking to Christians in churches. You better be preaching this from the pulpit, because I do, and I will till the day I die. By the grace of God, this is the only thing that's going to cure this nation, is the knowledge to the people of what they have to do. What is their duty before God while they live on this earth, right? To bring righteousness and judgment in the land. Number two, once we educate our next generation and continue to do that, you have to teach them how to educate their posterity as well. But number two is get involved in your local government, because there you're going to find the corrupt individuals who are not pushing the agenda themselves, but are being handed the agenda on a silver platter and being most of the time lied to. Even if we consider them good people, most of the time they're being lied to say, hey, you have to pass this because of X, Y, and Z. Or, hey, you have to get this federal grant because look at all the stuff you can do with this because of X, Y, and Z, right? Namely, they are submitting themselves into a tyrannical slavery by either the state or federal governments and taking from them, from stealing from the taxpayers, mind you, and using it for purposes outside of their authority. You go to these local meetings, you will find out who the players are if you know the law and if you know our Constitution and our foundations, right? If we can correct it at the local level in that manner, then we can start working up. We can work into our counties. We can get our state fixed, right? What happens when we have a state that is abiding by the Constitution? The federal government becomes null and void, because any act they do outside of the Constitution, the state can tell them, no, it's not happening here. And the state has a militia to protect itself. That is how this nation operates. So all the while people have their heads in the sand or their heads in the clouds, either or, we need to be level-headed here on earth. They're looking to the federal government to fix all of these issues. All the while, it's their duty to get involved locally to fix the issues at the federal level. That's how this works if we want to correct this, right?
Well, and I've heard the argument from people before when I've brought it up of saying, yeah, we shouldn't have a standing army. It really should be in the local militias because we're supposed to be a defensive force. And the argument that I've heard is that, what, you mean you think that we should take the tanks and everything and allocate tanks to each of the local militias? And my response is yes, that's where it's proper, and we should be trained on how to use those. And it's not meant as any disrespect for anyone in the military. They really should, at this point, probably be in the position of training the militia properly, because there's so many people that they wouldn't even know which end of a gun to look at.
Yeah, and do we know our Constitution in that, right? Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 and 16. One of Congress's jobs is to regulate, discipline, and arm the militia. They should be buying supplies and putting them in the hands of the local militias, right?
Well, and it was really based on the old Swiss system where, you know, you hear people talking about how, the Swiss have got, you know, just as high a gun ownership rates as the US and all of that kind of stuff. But you look at the Swiss system and it was based on that because they were basically small communities that stood up against for lack of a better word, the monarchy there, and ended up kind of forming a representative government. And that was their way of having balance between all of those different communities so that it didn't go to a monarchy again. Yeah. And each of those communities are required to have their own firearms range. And each of the people that are there either have to prove that they have practiced and are proficient with their firearm a certain amount per some time period, or if they don't fulfill their obligations in their training, they're taxed for it as being a burden on the defensive system.
Yeah, we used to have similar laws, especially in Virginia. They had their own laws. There was $100 fine if you didn't show up with your rifle to church because they understood that principle. And I had somebody came up and wanted to attack me on this issue a while back. And they said, well, if we don't have a standing army, how are we supposed to take care of an imminent threat, right? One that we just didn't see coming that just happens, right? And that answer is very simple. Because if you have a standing militia in the states, right, just the people who are armed, and you have armories and whatever else you need, which is the reason for federal land purchase in the states, right, for armories, dockyards, forts, et cetera, right? It's only in defense of the nation, not for these unconstitutional agencies to exist. But if we had that and they were well supplied and the people were actually trained up in their youth and in their 20s and 30s specifically, all the way up to the age of 62 or 65, whatever state you look at, if they were trained up in that, the moment a threat comes in, guess what? Whose duty is it to call that out? It is the governor's responsibility, right? The governor all of a sudden, hey, issues an executive order. Say, hey, we have to call up the militia. To what? To enforce the law, repel invasion, and suppress insurrection. Right? What do the people do when they hear that? I know a lot of people, they're just up, they got happy trigger fingers, man. And they are just ready to take it on at any given point. So the people, they get together 24 hours max, and they are armed, ready to go. They know who their threat is. They're briefed. They head out and they take care of the problem. They come back. They put all their military service back in the armory where it belongs, right? Not their private arsenal, but that's supplied by our government. They put all that back in the armory where it belongs, and they go back home and resume their daily lives, become regular members of society again until another threat comes up, right? This is very simple. You handle immediate threats as necessary. Well, wait a minute, because doesn't our Constitution say that that states cannot enter into war unless it's by Congress's approval? Well, in some manners, yes. However, a state may protect itself from any immediate threat or invasion without the approval of anybody in the federal government, right? Take that stick and chew on it for a minute. How much power do the states have over the federal government? All of it. All they have to do is say no more. That's why I say it has to start local, because that's the only way I see out of this.
Well, I don't see the federal government, up until recently tearing itself down. It was always up to building itself up. And I got to say, I'm kind of encouraged to see some of this stuff being torn down and exposed, but we're going to have to tear down, what, 90% of it?
Well, I think the thing is that you can't call out one aspect of, you have to call out the violations of the law, but you can't just limit it to calling out one aspect of the law or one position. They're violating it everywhere, and we need to be calling it out in all of those different positions at the same time, constantly.
Agreed. So I really think that this is pretty valuable discussion right now. And Charlotte came on this morning and said J.D. Vance should be on the House floor trying to pass President Trump's beautiful bill. He's in charge of the House. So I think to your point, Charlotte, is that when we see this, it's like, what's really going on here? Why is it that people are in positions, but they're not necessarily doing what they could do? It's just like the Republican Party of the state of Michigan. I got a feeling I know who they're going to run, because they're picking our candidates. And it's kind of interesting just because of some of the things that I've heard. And I don't know about you guys, but I think we should be picking our own candidates, and I don't think they should be establishment people.
Don't think they should be handing down the slates that you're supposed to vote for as a delegate?
Pretty extra sure that's a problem.
Yep. Eliminate the system altogether. Remember in Michigan before 2018, we did not have straight party ticket voting, right? And I wasn't too active back then, so I didn't catch it until later when I learned that. One of the things that happened in 2018, right? I had a friend of mine that was running for a congressional seat, and I forget which district, but it was right out of Grand Rapids. It was one of those gerrymandered Democrat districts, right, where they try to draw the lines based on party politics so that they can perceive a 50% vote to keep people blinded by the red-blue scheme. So he was in one of those districts anyway. And he didn't run as a Democrat or a Republican. He ran as an independent, namely under the U.S. Taxpayers Party of Michigan or the Constitution Party. But he ran in that regard. And he went door to door through his community and just gave them the knowledge, right? Basically stating that I'm running to protect your God-given life your God-given right to life, liberty, and property. How many people don't want somebody like that in office, right? I can't think of anybody that doesn't. I want somebody that's going to protect my rights, my life, and my property from any threats or invasion of them, right? So that's what he did, door to door through that entire community. Now, it was at that year, that was in 2018, I believe, or that might have been 2016, but it was at that time, he got 25% of the recorded vote, right? Which was just unheard of for minor party politics. Unheard of, especially in a Democrat district. And then they went to straight party voting right away. It seems to be a connection there, right? But he legitimately scared the political class, those who are allowed to rule in the political spectrum. He scared them to the point where now you can't fight against straight party ticket voting. Very few people want to get rid of that because they've been blinded by it for so long.
They cheated on it in the last election. And there was something that came out that said, if you vote straight party ticket, certain parts of your vote will be that were negated.
Yep.
But nobody wants to talk about that thing. So they're using all of this stuff to take our voices away. It's a First Amendment problem.
Yeah, it's not only the First Amendment, but it's later on the right to vote. Every individual has the right to vote here. It is our first line of defense as the people, is the ballot box, right? There's 3 lines of defense in this country. There's a ballot box, there's a jury box, and God forbid there's a cartridge box, right? Those are your physical lines of defense. And we have lost the first one almost entirely. The jury box we've only lost out of ignorance, because juries still have a massive amount of power. Not only can they relieve an individual whose rights have been violated, but the juries can judge the law and cause a law to be nullified and never enacted again. Not just used, but it cannot even be enacted again.
Well,
right?
that is if the jury selection process doesn't figure out that the potential jurors even know the phrase jury nullification.
Well, there's that. And we did that show too, where it's supposed to be a jury of your peers, as in people in your community who know you and can vouch for you as well. And that's back to the morality of the people, morality and knowledge, right? As two of the three essence for good governance, religion, morality, and knowledge. But if they had that knowledge, they would understand that, right? And that's back to the education system of educating our next generation. It all stems back to knowledge, right? Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. It all stems back to that. Let me give you an analogy. The house I'm at right now, we're out in Greenville. We're doing a little repair on a house. This guy's dumped way too much money in this. We should have just burned it down and started over. But nonetheless, he wanted to, and he pays good, so we do it. But we're repairing a foundation of this house, right? We're tearing out, this is an old Michigan basement, so it's all built on rock and mortar, right? The whole house just sits on rocks. And after 80 to 100 years, that mortar starts to break up because of the vibrations in not only the house, but the earth, and the rocks start falling away, which leaves the boards of the house weakened and not supported, right? So we go in and we pull rock out that's loose, and we repack it with mortar. We put everything back in, and then we have one of two options. Either we cement over top of what was originally put in to hold it in place from further degradation, or we build a retaining wall, a barrier wall, out of block, so that it can never move again, right? Think about that in the American style, right? Because our foundations, what America has been laid and built on top of, has been slowly degrading and torn out, and these rocks are falling because of mortar. Mortar is not being held together properly. The American people have two choices in that manner. Right? They can put the rocks back in and add a little more truth, a little more mortar to try to hold them in place, or they can put up that wall and they can say, no more will you move. No more will you remove our foundation. This is what it is, and we're not going to tolerate anything other than that. I'm okay with either set, right? Because both of them work. One of them you're just doing consistent repairs on, consistent educating and knowledge, so that the next generation can continue those same repairs. I'm okay with that, because freedom isn't free, and it's not something that we hand down to it's not something that's passed along in a bloodline, Ronald Reagan said, right? Freedom is to be handed down to the next generation, fought for and protected for them to do the same. That was a very misquoted quote, but you catch the idea. Or we as Americans can put up the wall, right? God forbid it comes to the cartridge box, but we could put up that wall and say, we will not tolerate anymore. But if it's only a few of us, you can guarantee our political dissent, we will be taken out for it, right? And I'm okay with that too. You want to pull me out of this earth, out of this government, I have no problem with that. It doesn't bother me in the least. I got better places to go. So those are our two options, right? Just a little physical analogy to represent something that America is looking at currently.
I like that. We had another comment that came in from Charlotte. I can't get into the Republican Party this year. I like the chair, Jim Runstead, but the past 4 years is hard to digest. Plot of J6 and the lies and the buyout. It's fake and it's weak. And if they end up as a Republican Party or such, choosing the candidate, which quite honestly, I think it's already in the works, that they are going to run. That is not the way this is supposed to work. And I got to tell you, I'm literally going to be very loud about this. And I think we all need to be. The parties don't get to pick who we get to vote for, because they're all funded. They're an enemy of the people. All the parties are at this point, because they've taken foreign money and dark money.
Yep.
Got a problem.
And
Well,
one thing about party politics, and I say this from not only somebody who has been on the inside, but specifically somebody who knows somebody on the inside of the Republican Party, who has been there for decades and decades and decades, and most recently returned. But this person has stood as a committee member, serving in any aspect that was handed to him. They served as a precinct delegate. They served as county chair, district chair, almost every position, all the way up to when they were asked to run for the state chair. All right. And this was back quite a few years ago now. But this person did so willingly. And the moment that they were put up and announced their campaign to run a state chair, immediately the executive committee of the Republican Party started a slander campaign and completely destroyed any amount of trust from the precinct delegates on this person's behalf. Right? That's the way they do it. They've got everything locked on so far. You can join the Republican Party by all means if you think you can make a difference. You can be like Norm Hughes and bang your head against a brick for 40 years trying to change something. And there was some good out of that, but boy, you see where it's at now, and they just flipped it with the swipe of a pen. But the problem is they've
changed from the inside.
Yeah, they've got their executive committee so locked down that it's all a buddy system, and if you're not part of the buddy system, you will never touch it.
Well, let's go back to the fact that it was DeVos that actually got Whitmer in. They pulled their funding on Tudor Dixon after she won the primary, after they basically were behind the signature, some of the signature stuff that was going on, because we had signature gatherers that were not being paid or being paid by both parties. They were all involved in it. And you look at what happened, and DeVos started a group after they tanked Tudor Dixon that was Republicans for Whitmer. It was Republican Party that put Whitmer in. It's all a fraud, and it's not going to change. It's too entrenched.
Well, and we talk about the foreign money getting involved in it, but there's really heinous discrimination against one particular group of people since Citizens United, and that's the corporations. Because the corporations, with that Citizens United case, were ruled to have the rights of free speech with their money to be able to, donate that to different causes, and so that's free speech. So they have First Amendment rights, but these corporations were denying them direct voting rights. And, that just seems really unfair that we would give them some rights of a person, but not all of the rights of a person.
Did you notice that Trump posted recently, and it's caught on the word panicking?
Yes.
And I loved it because I said, now we are in the first step of removing the parties. That's how I see it, because you're either a MAGAcan, you're either for America or you're against America. You are a panicking, and that is not just a Republican term. That is bypassing the party system. And I don't think he's pointing at the Republicans and saying, you guys are some of you are being too fearful. I don't think that's what he's doing. I think he's pointing out that you got to break down the walls of the party labels.
Yes. And I got to say, I'm pretty happy with the way things are going right now, honestly, just because this is such a big problem. You could not just flip the switch. Not the way we would like it to be done. I think there's some finessing going on there. And we can see things. It's like horse training. As long as you see them move their feet a little bit in the right direction, after we've had decades and decades of this thing being torn down, I'm happy with the way things are going, and I'm going to be a little patient with this. But if we see something wrong, we have to call it out, to your point, Bill. Well, guys, I've got my next guest on, Summer Cook. She's an author, and she's writing. I think you should listen to this. It's pretty amazing. She's been writing. She's a homeschool mom. I was homeschool mom too, but my kids are in their 30s and get close to 40. So, I was like, this is old school homeschool mom right here, right? But anyhow, she's a homeschool mom. She's been writing books to teach children and also adults on the Constitution. And I'm really kind of excited to talk to her. So I'll give you each 30 seconds. Last words. What are we going to say, guys?
Wow.
Okay, nothing.
The
remember-
sound of silence.
Remember when I think it was George Bancroft, right? He was named as one of the fathers of American education. He said, "God forbid there ever come a day when let's see, how did he word that? When a pure religious conviction and morality are missing from our places of public education," right? That is the point I was making, especially in Michigan. Religion, morality, and knowledge are necessary for good governance and the happiness of mankind. That is the reason why schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. It's Article 8, Section 1 of our Michigan Constitution. And he was absolutely right. That is the basis of what we need to be teaching. So praise God, there are people like this lady coming on, because without it, we're done as a nation. Our posterity is all that matters. Read the preamble of our U.S. Constitution. You'll understand that.
Ralph.
Oh, I guess just, with everything that's been going on, one really, like I said, I've been very much enjoying the backlash against the tariffs, in that the way that it's being presented is such obvious propaganda in most of the cases. And I think a lot of that, like it or not, whether you like the tariffs or not, or the way things are being done right now or not, the great thing is that so much of this is really showing a lot of what's going on for what it truly is, and it's getting harder and harder to hide that it's propaganda. And I think a lot of people are seeing that, which is a wonderful thing.
Karen.
I agree. And remember when I wrote a Substack article, I talked about the screaming bobcat. Just the bobcat caught in a trap. The hunter is coming, and all it can do is scream and wiggle around and try to intimidate the hunter to defend itself. It's got really no way of stopping what is coming. And every day I see more of that. And sometimes I point it out for exactly that. You'll see people doing absolutely ridiculous things out of desperation. And it's part of an awakening. Though I said before the show, I don't think we really need everybody on board, but there are still some things happening that are completely obvious, as Ralph was saying.
There you go. Well, it's great to see you guys again. And I'm going to move on to my next segment with Summer Cook. And you guys have a very great day. The last thing I want to say is that I got a response from the judge from the court case that I filed last week. And so it is moving along. And I think, like I said, one down, few more on deck. This is going to be interesting. I've got to go refile something. And I think that the train has left the station. So absolutely wonderful time to be alive and time for action. So you guys have a great day today. I'll be on with Summer Cook in just a minute. I'll be back. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 9th day of April 2025, and welcome to our show today. So my next guest is going to be coming on. She's a homeschool, stay-at-home mom, best best profession in the whole planet, you know, in my opinion. And we're going to be talking about the books that she's written to educate all of us. I would say all of us. You know, I don't like to differentiate between kids' books and adult books because, quite honestly, we've missed a lot going through school, and I think we can go back and relearn what we've missed. But I want to welcome her on this morning. Morning, Summer. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on today. I'm really excited for you to share what you've been working on. So how did you get started doing what you're doing? And I want to hear about your homeschooling and, you know, and everything else going on.
Yeah, you know, for the last 5 years, since 2020 and all of that, you know, I really, the best thing they could have done with locking us down as COVID was make us law monsters, right? So I didn't know, like most people, our Constitution, state and federal, you know, didn't realize that we had 51 public trust contracts that we can hold government accountable with. And because of that, you know, it was just really kind of tugging at me over time, going, you know, I'm a homeschooling mom. I want to teach my kids what I know. And so I said, I wonder if I could put together a curriculum. And I kind of messed around with it here and there over the years. But I finally it all just kind of clicked for me within the last month, where I was like, this is so simple. I can just make kids books, tell the stories through kids books. I can make a little curriculum on the provisions and what they mean with definitions, and so it just kind of started flowing for me. And so the very first book I did was you know, Maxims of Law for Kids, because I said this is literally where I really started getting a basic for the fundamentals, right? These are fundamental laws that are, you know, universally accepted among all people. And so I was like, we'll start there, and then we'll slowly work into the constitutions, you know. And you know, as we were doing it, I said, well, I like to start with my kids' ages, so that's where I started with that, because I said, well, I can do it for my kids, and so I started doing it there, and then I said, wait a minute, other people need this, you know. I shouldn't just keep it to my children. And so I said, let me put them in books and get them out to the kids and the families. And before you knew it, it blew up overnight. And I was like, whoa, what happened? You know, so that was exciting. Yeah, so that's basically how I got started.
That's awesome. So I'm interested in the topic, and you know, it's one of those things you said about the 51 contracts of trust or trust contracts. Can you explain that at all?
Yep. Yeah. So, you know, we're told we have, I mean, growing up in school, right? They tell us that we have state government and we have federal government. They always tell us that the federal government is the supreme and the highest, but and they always point us to the United States Constitution, and that's where, when we're hearing about standing on our rights, they point us to the United States Constitution. But we have 50 state constitutions. Let's be real. We have literally 50 state governments, a total of 51 governments in the United States. And so there are things that the states are allowed to do that the federal government's not allowed. And there's things that the federal is that the states are not allowed. And so you kind of have to know the jurisdictions of each, right? And so when I say public trust, that's literally what our constitutions are. They're contracts. The people, when we founded this nation, we created a government based on a contract that was going to govern them, not us. So those public trust contracts literally say, this is what the people have declared. These are our rights. You work for us. These are your limitations. And if you do not abide by that, the people have the power to correct and, you know, instruct, and even so much as alter, reform, and abolish, and remove people from seats without having to wait for elections. I mean, that's huge, right? Because, like, we weren't taught this, you know, we just weren't taught this. And so this is the contract that we can hold over our public servants. Or some people don't like the term servants. It's not meant to be, you know, slave ship here. That's not what this is. They voluntarily, you know, asked to serve us. And so as they're serving us as our trustees, and we're the beneficiary and we're the trust protector, we have a duty and obligation as the people to make sure that our employees are doing their job. It's just like any other CEO company, right?
I've heard to them referred to as public functionaries.
Yeah. Well, and and the thing is they're handling our business. Nothing belongs to them. They may want to act like it. They may want to try to over exercise powers that they weren't granted. But it's like I said, the people are the ones who are responsible for keeping them in line. And because we had been indoctrinated out of it through our school systems, and right? So because we've been indoctrinated out of it, we left our first estate. We didn't realize we were the ones that were the ones with all the power. We hear it all the time. We, the people, have all political power, but we don't know how to yield it and we don't know what that looks like. And so for me, that's why writing these books was so important because I want everybody, birth, death, just knowing that this is what we are. The people is not just a catchphrase, it's literally who we are as a person and who we are as a community when we come together to deal with the things our government is trespassing on against us. So that's basically.
Could you put your for some reason we're having a hard time this morning. Could you put your link to your website in the private chat? You see where it is?
Oh, sure. Yep.
Yeah, let's do that, and then I'll bring it up real quick, and then we can look at some of the books that you can talk about. Have you gone down the path to see exactly what the steps are to hold them accountable?
Well, I will say that we have been working on this. We've been doing this for the last 5 years. Huh?
Oh, go ahead. I couldn't hear you for a minute, but now you're okay.
Did you say? Oh, I was trying to get my link. I'm sorry. So there are steps to this. We have been working on this as the people. There's a decent sized group of us who are petitioning our government. So this is, we're exercising. If you look at the federal constitution, it's our First Amendment, right? In the states, we have the right to free speech, petition, and all of that, which the provision will be different spots in the bills and declarations, but it's there. And so when they say petition, we are told that we have to go through the statutory process of filling out a petition that has been written by one person, and we all just sign on this one piece of paper, right? And it's all through statutory means instead of just coming as the people, which means that if you're going statutorily, the government, you're basically saying, well, I give you permission, government, to decide whether you're going to accept this or not and listen to it or not, or do anything with it at all, versus being one of the people writing judicial notices to our trustees, be it the Supreme Court, the sheriff, the legislators. So we write judicial notices showing the fundamental law. We declare who we are as the people. We show what they're doing wrong. We show them where in the constitutions say this is off limits. You were doing this, and this is how you correct it. If you do not correct it, then we have the right to come and hold you accountable. And so from there, then that turns into, if they don't respond, we tell them in the notice you have X amount of days. It could be 3, 5, whatever, 10 days to respond. If you don't respond by affidavit, and it has to be sworn affidavit to the people, then you agree that you are trespassing knowingly against the people. And then what happens after that is we can then do affidavits. And those affidavits that the people write will then also be the same procedure where if they don't respond, it stands as truth and fact in all courts of record, and no magistrate can rehear the matter. And it's basically a done deal. It's settled. We said you didn't respond, and we have the proof, and here it is. And then it has to be dealt with that way. So that's the essential mechanism for dealing with that.
What's the next step after that? After the affidavits, are you guys doing like lawsuits?
Well, that part. Well, that part we kind of don't talk about, just because of the fact that we don't want the people to jump ahead of the gun, right? That get ahead of it. You might say, okay, I know some of my rights, but you have to be able to assert that, stand on that. And so we're very careful to give that out to just, you know what I mean, to like the public, only because of the fact that we're trying to protect the people at the same time that we're teaching them, because we need the people to understand they have the power first, which is a battle all in itself. Because the first thing people get is the fear of well, they're the government. They're going to do whatever they want to do, right? So it's like, yeah, but you're the one who holds all the power. It says it. It's written. It's in the law, right? And so first it's getting through that barrier of the belief of I'm the one who has the power. I'm the king and queen of this nation, right? And so that's like the first step to all of it. And then it's teaching them the law and what the law says, because most times people will come and then add statute. And what happens in a notice is if you're using the Constitution and statute, you're confusing jurisdictions. So you have to be very precise and know exactly what you're doing. And so that's why I would totally suggest learning from David Jose, because he is the one who taught me. I wouldn't know or be able to do half the things I do with that. You know, I've gotten in front of my public servants and just, I mean, it was so crazy the first year that I started learning the law, that after a couple months I had known so much that I had my assembly speaker who was totally destroyed in front of the people. He could not rebut anything I said. Attorneys couldn't rebut what I said. And then there was a ex-Supreme Court justice that came up, shook my hand and was like, man, you must have been studying the law for a long time. I said, no, it's been 3 months. And he was like, what? You know, so, you know, I've got the respect from my trustees, and I've actually gotten phone calls from legislators saying, what should we do about this? How do we proceed? So now they're asking me, just somebody, nobody, you know, what do I do to make this right? Right.
Oh, that's really
So,
cool.
but like I said, we just, yeah.
There's a lag
Yeah.
back and forth.
So we're
with
just very
everybody
careful,
else,
like
so
I said.
just be a little patient here with me and the system, because for some reason we've had a little bit of a systemic disconnect this morning, but that's okay. We'll keep going. Mom first.
Yeah, mom first.
First,
He's like, I gotta show you this game. But yeah,
that's
he's
awesome.
really excited because he gets to play now.
Oh, very cool. So can you put that link in the private chat again? I don't know if you put it in there. I didn't see that in there. And
Yeah, I was going to, but I thought.
Oh, you know what? I just got it. I was able to do it in a different way. Kind of was having a hard time getting it up there. Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. Perfect. Yeah, I've been watching what David Jose's group has done for quite a while, and really pretty impressed with what you guys are doing and what you're working on and such. So what would you say, like, where does someone start with this? What really, if they were going to go in here and start looking at the materials that you put together, let's give an overview of this.
Mm-hmm.
How to be a quick turn or law monster.
Yeah, so how to be a quick turn law monster is for those who, you know, basically want to learn their power. Now, this is a Dave Jose course. So Dave Jose is the teacher. He has allowed me the privilege of being able to sell his content here. It's like, it's good stuff. He gives you, he has like, I think there's about 7 or 8 different videos on there, but it breaks down the law in such simplicity. And really, in any course you take with him, you get $1 million information, things, you know, things that you can't get in law school, right? And so that one is one that is good if you want to start learning your rights and how to stand up to government and how to instruct. It's a good starting point for people. And so that is a membership of $50, right? And so that's for those who want to really get out there and make the changes. They want to get active, right? And so then there's the right now currently there's the paperback of the what's it called? The I wrote so many. The Voices of Independence, the founding documents that shaped America. That one is important in the sense of when I sat there for the last 5 years hearing people saying that petitions are just a piece of paper, right? I wanted to go back in history and show how petitioning was done from the get-go, right? It was through petitioning in which everything started in forming America. They sent petitions to the king telling them, honestly, basically telling them, these are things you're trespassing against us. We do have some rights, right? Which brought forth the Magna Carta and other things that had occurred then. And honestly, the last, and I didn't even know this, and I don't know how many people have ever even heard of this, but there was what was called the Olive Branch petition, which was right before the Declaration of Independence. And it was a petition that was sent to the king because they did not want to be put into wars and they didn't want to be made put into poverty, right? And the barons were saying, we don't mind being under your rule, but you have to give us a break here and you got to do some of this stuff right. And that the king had resulted in literally putting out something to go after, a notice to go after the people who were doing this, wanted to get them to basically deal with them and calling them rebels, right? And so because of that, they said, no, we're done. We're done. And so that's when the Declaration of Independence came about. And obviously we see how that shaped the founding of America. It went from, we're going to allow there to be a monarchy over the people or a democracy over the people, to we're having a constitutional republic where the people collectively rule together and they can self-govern their own affairs, and the government is hands off. They're only allowed to handle the people's business, and the people are in control of this vessel, right? And yes, we hear a lot of times we're an experiment, right? Because this is the truest republic you can see, right? Because we're talking, the people have the power. The only people, or the only person or thing that we answer to as the people is God, and that is it. It takes a moral people to run this thing, because we have to go back to the foundation of everything. And when we look at where the founding of everything came from and where the root of the common law is, it literally stems from God and his biblical principles that we're seeing in the Bible. And so to me, that was like really important. And that's why I wrote that book, because it gives you a walkthrough of petitions that had been done and what led up to that point. So that's what that book is.
Awesome. Where do you want to go next?
Scroll down a little. I can't remember. I reorganized it. Okay, so there's children's curriculum. So with the children's curriculum, I wanted to just basically give the kids a basic understanding of the state constitutions, right, and the federal constitution, and so that goes through what they are, what they're for, who has power, and there's little mini like test quizzes in there, right, and worksheets. So it's filled with worksheets and teaching lessons. And so with that one, I decided to keep it in a printable version, so that way when people download it, they can do it if they have multiple kids in the family, so they don't have to buy a new book every time they want to teach it.
That's what I'm talking about, family friendly right there. I love that. I love that you did it that way to help enable more people to actually use this and incorporate it into their families. That is beautiful.
Yeah. And I said that was originally how I wanted to do it with my kids. My homeschooling curriculum, that I started using is My Father's World, which teaches biblical principle and ties everything together. And I like it, but there were things when going through it that I said they're missing the spot on this one important thing. Yes, they're teaching about God, but they're not teaching about the fundamentals in law. And this is what we need, because this was what was supposed to be taught in schools all along, was how to control our corporations, how we were supposed to navigate our government to do the will of the people and for our common good and benefit, and so I said, well, yeah, we got to get this out, and so I did it for my kids, and they're enjoying it. And I said, okay, we'll get it out for them. And so that is, it's a small curriculum, it's not huge. And so I said, well, let's get it out there. So we did. And then next to that, I have the coloring book worksheets for the maxims of law. Those actually have written on them. It's got the pictures from the maxims of law books, which you'll see below in that screen there. but they're all the same things from that, but I turned them into coloring pages so that it could be interactive, so they could enjoy coloring while reading, while learning, and just reinforce it, right? I just thought it was a nice little added touch to include with it. Okay, and then so we have the paperback of the Constitution, right? We the People, Our Constitution, right? That one is written poetically, so I wanted to incorporate in that the literature aspect of poetic form, because that's something that kids learn in school. And I said, well, what better way to do that than to add poetry to some of these books, right? And so that book literally is in poetic form, and it goes through explaining what the Constitution is again. It actually tells what the three branches of government is, and then it talks about the power of the people. And that one, it goes as far as saying that we have the right to alter, reform, and abolish, and our Constitution is how we do that. We use our Constitution to do that. And so that's what that one is. I love it. I'm looking at it now. It's gorgeous. I love it. So, put it in paperback, and,
Can you
it's
hold it
got
up again?
images. Yep. It's got images. So like let me go to this one. This one's like probably my favorite, because when I did it, I was like, oh, it's beautiful. So this one here, right? It's a powerful statement, right? I mean, you're seeing that kids are pulling the government servants out of their positions because they have not been listening to the people, right? And so I love that, because we're showing the kids, hey, even you as one of the sovereigns can do this, right? So, and then you got your little signs that say abolish and, all that on it. And so then, it shows how there's the judicial system and the executive branch, which I said, where'd it go? Pages are sticking. Where you've got, a kid writing the Constitution. I wanted to make it something they can relate to, right? So
who did the illustration on that? It's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. And I didn't know how the print was going to be. It was the first time I used, Amazon KDP, and when I got them, I almost cried. I said, they're beautiful. They look like exactly what I saw on screen. So I was excited. I was really
who did your illustration? Did you do it?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Between me and AI, which I'm not a big AI person, but I said, well, let's see if I can use this thing that I know is going to be bad someday, like really bad someday. I'm going to use it for good, right? And so,
you know what, I'm kind of a person that I believe the AI can be. It's like anything else that can be used definitely by good, and that they really don't want us in AI, because if you know how to trick it a little bit, it'll tell you the truth. That's what they don't want.
Yes.
Well, I'm all about get in there and use anything that's working at the time. But your book is beautiful. You did such a nice job. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same way. I know when Grok came out, I actually went up against Grok with the Constitution and the people's power, and it kept, like, I'd say, go look at this, like this Constitution, and look at what this says and look at what that says. And it would come back and it would tell me exactly what it says, word for word, verbatim. And then it would say, but, and I said, no, we're not doing buts. So what I was able to tell people was going against Grok is like going against your public trustees and your attorneys. It really is. And it's great practice if you know the law, and I literally got it to where I broke it enough to say, you're right, I'm wrong, this is what it is. And so it was pretty cool.
I will absolutely correct it, because I think that it has to learn from us too. So if we go in there and say, no, you got the information wrong, this is correct, you've got bad sources, and then I'll go in and say, you need to be retrained, So mom to AI is what's happening here. Well, that's fantastic. Andrew, I think you say his name, Prune, Pruyyn, says to say hi. Zach is amen, and Craig Snyder is everything is used for good and evil. AI is in training and learning. AI is just statistics. That's all it is. And so it makes it takes all the information and it's able to crunch it really well. So I do think we need to be involved in this. So where do you want to go from here now?
Okay, so the next one I see are the J Team Adventures. I do have one on hand But so what I did with these, the first one I wrote, this is going to be a series. Um, the J team is actually my sons. I use my sons as the characters. I have two boys, one Jackson Jordy, and we have called them the J team since birth.
Aw.
And so, I decided, Mike, because they're very imaginative and they like to have, and inquisitive, and they love to have adventures. And so they'll be playing. I'll hear them, whether it be talking about the Constitution or trying to build something. So I decided I'm going to use that to help teach children through using children they could relate to. And so that first one there, the J Team Adventure soaring with the Wright brothers was, I said, oh, this would be kind of cool to teach some history, right, on the first airplanes, because my kids were playing on the floor seriously with a box and they wanted to try to build an airplane. And so I took from that and then it just came alive, right? So basically what that one is like about is how they're sitting there, they're looking at their cardboard box, they want to build an airplane, they don't know how. And then all of a sudden they go back in time to meet the Wright brothers and they learn everything about how to build an airplane. And then they come back to their normal time and they build a paper, a cardboard airplane.
Okay,
Right?
well, hang on. I want to switch screens so I can see what you're showing here. Oh, fun! Those
So
are
then they build
the
their plane.
illustration is darling.
Yeah, and so here they are tinkering with the plane, right? And going over learning how to do all of it. So, I was like, this is fun. I mean, I have a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. I have a lot of fun. So,
Good.
it's like I'll write it and then I'll do the illustrations, and illustrating it is just like the best, right? And so that is that book. The other, there's two more books in this series that I did. One is right next to it, that is the Freedom Parade, which goes all over them going on this adventure because they're at a 4th of July parade and they want to know, why do we celebrate the 4th of July? I don't understand. So then they go back in time again and they learn all about independence. And then they come back and they're super excited because they're like, now we understand what it's all about, right? And so, but in that book, they get to meet Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, and they actually get to help save the Constitution that got blown out of the founders' hands. Yes, I'm talking about your book.
Our books. Is that who's that? Here, I'm gonna bring him on. Here, hang on.
That's my. Oh, he ran away already.
Did you
my
run away?
He ran away already. Yeah, but
you did a special mommy there, Bud. This is really cool.
But yeah, so he was super excited when he learned that these books were in his, like, in their name and it was all about them. He was like, "Oh, that's so cool," So, but that's what the
gift you've given them. I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah, and so the J Team Adventures, like I said, that is all about them going on these adventures, teaching about the independence, the 4th of July, what it's all about. I got the Wright brothers. I have a whole lineup. I mean, I have a list of probably, I want to say 50 different books I'm ready to write, and it's just getting to them. Then there's another one that is the J Team again. That one is about the Star Spangled Banner and how it was written. And so they get to meet the writer, and they're talking about how if the flag still stands, then we're winning, and that even through all of that, they prevailed. And so that is what that book is about. And I love that song. I love listening to the words, and I wanted to bring those words to life through images for children, right? So that is what that book is about. And then Ben and the Mayflower Dream, that one, actually, I started before I did the J Team Adventures, but because I wasn't even thinking about, hey, I could just use my kids. So I used this boy, Ben, who takes a trip on the Mayflower, and he goes through trying to understand You know, again, this is kind of another one of those, let's go back in time. But this one was more through a dream. So he, before bed one night, says, I wonder what it was like on the Mayflower, right? And so he drifts off to sleep and he starts dreaming. And I can show you images from this book too, because I have this one. But he goes and he goes to sleep and he ends up on the Mayflower. And then from being on the Mayflower, he meets the people there. And then while meeting the people there, he is learning all about how, they got tossed ashore and it was raining and not, it was really difficult for them to travel. And then it cuts to where they're sitting down at a table discussing what can we do, right, to keep it peaceful for the people. And they start drafting the Mayflower Compact, right? And so then after that, he ends up drifting back. He basically, oops, sorry, wrong side. He basically cuts out of the dream, and now he's getting ready to wake up from his dream. And as soon as he comes out, he goes, now I understand, what a dream I had. I understand what the Mayflower Compact was. It was about making a promise to work together, right? And then he said, then basically it comes to him saying, well, I want to be like those people, and I want to have the dream of helping people have peace, right? And so that's what that book is about.
That's awesome. Okay, let's look at the other ones here. This is really fun. I love this.
Okay, so these next two that are on there, these are not government related. I still like them. The one with the mom and the boy there, it's called I Will Cherish, and it's actually a poem I wrote for my son, Jackson, who was a miracle baby. I had been sterilized for 15 years, had a lot of problems, and I had to get a tubal reversal, and then I got the blessing of having him 3 months later. And so it's just basically walking through a mother's feelings towards her children. It's called I Will Cherish, and it basically goes through, I'll cherish every moment. Like, it's like, I'll cherish making you food. I cherish you sitting on my lap. I cherish watching you play. I cherish catching the fireflies at night, as many as we could get. I cherish, every bath, every walk, every milestone in your life, playing in the rain, you saying I love you, saying my name, all of these things. And then at the end, it's basically saying, I cherish all of these things because I cherish you. Right.
Aww.
And so that's what that one's about. So that one, like I said, not political or we the people grounded, but that was one that, I was like, well, I want to get it in a book, for my kids. And that's the same as the next one next to that, the Kate and the Deep Sea Adventures. That is literally a book about my daughter I wrote 20 some years ago when I did not realize I was ever going to be actually publishing anything. I wanted to for a very long time, didn't know how. And again, AI being something I use to help me illustrate with my ideas and bring them to life. Because I can draw, but when I'm trying to draw from memory, I'll lose it. So it's like, so if I say what I want and then it does it, it's like totally awesome, right? But that one was based off of my daughter, who I had been watching playing in the pool. It was her imagination. She was chasing around like the little dive sticks, and there was a little wind-up shark in the pool, and she was acting like she was in the ocean. And so I made a story all about the event. And at the very end, I mean, like, you start and it's like, I'm going on a deep sea adventure, and you think she's really going on one. And at the end, it literally says, well, I heard a loud voice. I looked, and mom said, it's time to get out of the pool. It's time for lunch, And so it was just kind of trying to, be imaginative and stuff with her little adventure. So that's what that one's about.
Yeah, that's so cute.
Yeah.
So nice.
And so these ones, most of these in here are my, so you have the ebook Constitution Kids Law Bundle, right? So that has the We the People, I think there's like 2 of the J-Team Adventures, Ben's, what is it? The Ben's Mayflower, and then the Maxims of Law. And those are just ebooks downloaded straight to your inbox. And it's good to go. You can print them, put in them in a binder, whatever. And then, yeah, I think that's probably most of them. I mean, other than that, like I said, I do have the paperback. I'm going to go the Maxims of Law paperback. I have it in paperback, and now I have it on there for, I think I have it on there for ebook, but the paperback, because this is what started it all. So this is the first one I wrote, and in writing it, it was like I had it on ebook form with PDF downloadable, and I had people saying, "Why are you going to put these in print?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know." So then I went and checked it out, and I said, "Okay, well, I guess I can. I'll do print on demand." And so there you go. There's the book, right? I was able to do it within 24 hours, and I was like, "I have a live book. Oh wait, I'm an author. What?" But this one I like because, all right, so in the beginning it talks about what the maxims of law are, because you want to have an understanding of that. But this one starts with the first part. The first part of volume 1 is government, right? So it literally goes through and talks about what it is. So one of my favorites in here is, I mean, I have a lot of favorites in here, but one of them is, well, this kid here, right? I like this image where the kid is holding the scales and talking about how justice is blind. So it gives the maxims of law, but I simplified it in language that can be used for anywhere from baby to 9 or 10 years old, right? As we're building them up to kind of give them these ideas, because as they get older now, they're going to start hearing it more complicated, and they're going to go, oh wait, this makes sense, right? Another one like this one was like, how do I illustrate this, right? So this one is where the maxims of law basically says nobody in government can hold 2 offices, right? So here we have a guy that I'm like, make them look alike, but alike, one's a judge and one's a lawyer, right? A judge cannot be a lawyer because there's a conflict of interest. Just like a judge can't be a legislator because there's a conflict of interest. So I wanted to make sure to hit that one home for the kids, right? So they understood, right?
That
I love
is
that
so
one.
important. And we have so much conflict of interest within our
We do.
government. Unbelievable.
Yes. Yes. And then there's let's see. Then there's common knowledge in the second volume. I like this one because this image shows kids, right? All of them except for one is holding an orange. Now, apples and orange, right? And so it says the name of things should be understood by how most people use them, not just by one person thinks. So just because one person thinks something doesn't mean everybody has to think it, because we go by what is common to all, right? So I thought this is a great way to explain it, because when one person thinks the law says this, but the law says actually this, and everybody agrees, right, with historic usages and customs, well, that, so that's how I tried to use that to show that.
That's awesome. And they keep trying to change definitions on us to
Yes.
confuse everybody, and to not just to confuse us, but to confuse us and divide us. The divisions that are going on are absolutely engineered, and to keep us divided so we can't stand together and fight together, because we're arguing points that really aren't central to the issue. The issue is go back and look at the definition and stop bifurcating the whole thing so that we can obstruct what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then this one is, I like this one. This illustration says it all, right? You here have a kid destroying the law books, the Constitution. He's just shredding it, right? I used that because I wanted to illustrate the maxim, and this is what it says. When someone is allowed to break the usual rules, it can cause problems or hurt the common law because it goes against the way things are usually done. It's like giving permission to bend the rules, which can make the rules weaker, which is what our government trustees and servants are doing right now, especially when they're using bar attorneys to rewrite law in man-made law instead of constitutional law.
Yeah, this whole bar attorney thing is a real problem, and I think people need to understand there is no such thing as a law license. It's a private membership association, and in itself is a cartel. You want to fight
and I'm going to tell you,
how about the law cartels?
Right. Well, and I'll tell you, like, if you go on and okay, go on Chat GPT, and if you ask it about lawyers, and if they literally have um, if they have a grant of permission to intercede between government and the people, it tells you no. They are a private association. It tells you that they literally have a conflict of interest and they are
Absolutely.
beholden to the bar. And so I was at a county board here a meeting, and it was one where they were trying to, get an ordinance to pass mask and vaccine mandates in my county. And so I went and I publicly spoke and gave public notice there, even after serving them before I went. And I was sitting there, they try to say you only have like 3 minutes to talk. But where in the Constitution does it say that government was given any granted authority to limit the amount of time that one of the people can instruct, right?
Right.
So there was a guy who had gotten up after they closed the open session, and they were talking over things, and a guy was asking a question, said, could you please clarify? And, was looking for literal answers to these questions. And they said, oh, I'm sorry, it's closed for comment, right? And then he turns and he goes, well, but, don't you think we should be able to understand what's going on? They kept trying to shut him down. And they said, well, okay, we'll ask our attorney because he basically has the say. I'm like, wait a minute, when did the attorney get the say, right? So he came and he goes, yeah, no, during closed session, it's forbidden. I said, are you literally telling me right now that you're depriving this man's right to instruct his government? Is that what you're telling me? And he was like, well, it's a part of the function. I said, well, I don't care. Parliamentary rules and procedures you guys follow is not what we follow. I was like, and you are a bar attorney card. You're a bar attorney. Can I see your membership card? Because I know that's all it is. You do not have a license to practice law in the state. You only have this little card that says, hey, I am a part of a bar membership. Can I see it? He sat down and slumped his shoulders. I mean, he was very ashamed. Like, man, I'm caught,
They know when you nail them with the truth. I mean, and
Mhm.
it's a bad day. I've done that. I've done that a few times too, where they've actually closed it out, and I've actually gotten up and says, "Don't even try this, because you do not have the right to tell me that I can't speak." And since you've given all these other people who are here as infiltrators of our local government the right to speak as long as they wanted to, including the attorney, I know you're going to give your constituents the same courtesy as you given the people who have invaded our local governance. Ain't gonna happen. Not gonna happen. And
Yeah.
I think that's important. We all need to learn that, to be able to stand up and go, you got the right, and encourage each other. You have the right, but you got to know the law, and be able to quote, say, the Open Meetings Act, be able to quote the laws that are out there. And Norton versus Shelby County, that's a one that Judge Cannon threw out there in one of the Trump lawsuits, and basically says that so a lot of these things, they don't even exist. So why are we even acknowledging them?
Well, yeah, and another example of putting what I learned to work was I had actually been called for a summons to be selected for jury duty. And I'm like, oh, this could be fun. So I said, well, I kind of wanted, obviously I really want to get on the jury, but I wonder how this is going to go. So I prayed about it. But I went to the jury selection, and they went through a whole bunch of questions like they do for selection. And by the time I had gotten called up, I said, well, I have an issue with some of the things you're asking. And I said, so we could probably go in the back and talk about it instead of here, because I wouldn't want to corrupt anybody or whatever in this process. I was like, but I'm giving you the chance to hear me here or behind chambers, right? So they took me back in the chambers. It was me, the judge, the defense attorney, and the DA. And we got back there, and I said, okay, here's my problem. I said, this is not a court of record. This is an administrative tribunal. And that means you're not a real court practicing under due process of law, right? And this man out here is not getting properly represented, nor are you using the actual law to go after this person because you're using statutory law, right? So I broke it down for them. I said, Mr. DA, this is my first problem. You asked the panel on the jury if they had served on a jury before. And when one said yes, you said, okay, what jury? And she said, the grand jury. And when she said the grand jury, you turned around and said, how is that possible? Because, or when was that? Because we don't have a grand jury in Wisconsin. I said, if we don't have a grand jury in Wisconsin, how did you get an indictment? Because the only person who can bring an indictment is the grand jury. And if the grand jury is, I said, and if you did have a grand jury, if we do have a grand jury, why was the defendant not allowed to have access to their grand jury? Because he has a right to see who his accusers are and view and submit something to them as well. I mean, I had him blocked up, he was like, right. So from there, it then turned into, I said, now the other problem I have with you is I said, where's your witness and where is your sworn testimony? I said, what I see out there is a police officer who cannot actually write a sworn affidavit of harm. And who did he harm? Where was the harm done for what you're accusing him of? I said, now being the case that the case is for drunk driving and being intoxicated, swerving, whatever, I said, here's the problem I have with this. The law is clear. Unless there is harm or injury to somebody, you cannot just pick somebody up for something and call it a crime. I said, I do not believe in driving drunk. I believe you should do the right thing. And if you think you can't drive, you should definitely, do the right thing and call a cab or whatever. But who did he hurt? You don't have anybody. You have a police officer out there, and the only affidavit you have is a citation. Because if you look at your citations, it'll say up at the top, affidavit. I'm like, no, affidavits are literally what's up, stamp, seal in front of a notary. That is not it, right? So from there, it turned into, and I said, and you're using statutory law, which statutory law is to further govern our public servants. It is not for the people, right? And most times you do things that is not in pursuance to the Constitution. And that is what this is doing. Because all you have that you're saying he's guilty of is being intoxicated. Being intoxicated in itself is not a crime, right? So we have an issue there.
Who is harmed? And it's like they have to stick with the law, not just what they think they can do or what they want to do. The problem that I see too, to your point here, is that in Michigan, we, with the civil action jurisdiction is what we have. 98% of our cases are over a money judgment in Michigan. And they take 18% of this to go into their retirement funds and such. It's like, are you kidding me? Yeah. This is a money grab, just like the DNR does the land grabs. These people are full on pirates, and they're parasites, and they've committed treason. They've committed treason 17 ways to Taiwan at this point in time, and it's amazing. We should probably say 17 million ways to Taiwan that they've screwed this up. And the fact that you got the knowledge and the guts to go after him, you go, girl. This is great.
Yeah. Well, and that defense attorney, when I turned to him, I said, and you're not properly representing this person. I said, you're not even using the constitutional law for this state or even the United States. You're literally sitting here in statute again. I said, and the problem with that is I can already tell you before that jury is assembled and the trial actually begins, you're already going to have a plea deal for him, and he's not getting true representation.
Oh, and this whole plea deal nonsense got to stop. I mean, this is crazy.
It does. And with talking with constitutional lawyers, I actually got them to openly admit that they are told not to use the Constitution and that they should get them plea deals. That's how they win. Well, then how are you properly representing your your client?
You're just not. They're literally
Yep.
coercing people. Well, if you don't do the plea deal and you lose, you're going to go to jail for 100 lifetimes or so, whatever it is.
Yep.
And so they're coercing people.
Yeah, and they're using fear, and
You bet.
it's worked for a long time. But I'm like, my gloves are off. We're literally going to get the truth out there, And so I told him, I said, you should be standing on his right for due process is what you should be doing, because he's not getting it. I said, and judge, if you want to call yourself that, I said, you are nothing but an administrative hearing officer. You are not a real judge. Oh, I assure you I am. I said, no, you're not. I said, Neil Gorsuch, Supreme Court Justice, he wrote a book about you guys, literally telling us that you dress up in robes and you are a hearing officer today and a lawmaker tomorrow, and that you guys are abusing and using 3 branches of government powers that you were never granted. I said, now, not only that, but you just told the jury that you will instruct them on what law they get to hear and decide on. That is not how a jury works. A jury can investigate and make sure that the crime fits the law fits the crime, right? And if it doesn't, then they can acquit and say no, right? So I was like, so you're not following that either. You're telling them, oh, you have to go with the laws we put before you. And so I told them all, I said, I just solved your whole case right here, and you don't even need that jury. You don't have a case. You have no case. And, so it was,
so what happened next,
you're dismissed. We'll dismiss you as a juror. Well, they were like, you're dismissed. We'll let you go as a juror, right? I said, okay. As I'm walking out, because this is how I am, as I'm walking out, I turned and I said to the defendant, I said, I just told your defense attorney how to win this case. And they all know what they're doing. And I walked out of the room, and I waited till after it was all said and done, and they didn't even go through with the conviction. They didn't even try the case. They closed it.
Well, because you challenged them, and they knew that there was going to be bite on the other side of this if they did it wrong, because you were holding them accountable. Bravo, that's fantastic. I love this.
Well, yeah, and I had told that was the other thing I had told the judge in there. I said, you asked if I had a relationship with anybody in government. I said, I have a relationship with all of you. I have sent notice upon notice to my government servants, and you guys have received notice on the Chevron deference and how that was dead. You received notice that the people are demanding you give us our grand juries, stop blocking them. And so you've been served by me. Little do you know it. Now you're seeing the face of the person who served you.
What was the response?
They were like, well, they tried to do they tried to push it off on, I never received that, so-and-so this, so-and-so that. I said, well, and then I always say, you might want to talk to your clerk, because we serve this to your clerk, and they, as your agent, are supposed to give it to you. And if your agent doesn't give it to you, you are responsible for what that agent does, because they are acting in your place. And so if they don't do it, they ignore it, then they literally just put you at risk of getting in trouble, because if the people come after you for not responding, right, as we ask you to do in affidavits, then the judgment's going to be made against you, and what, your clerk doesn't have anything happen to them. So you need to make sure your agents are doing what they're supposed to, because agents are acting for the principal. You're the principal. You better make sure they're flying right.
There you go.
So yeah.
That is a great recount of what happened. I love that. I wish more people would just be able to find the courage to stand up like that and hold them accountable. You did nothing wrong, and you really just completely stopped them. Man, like hitting you was like hitting a brick wall there. I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And so that's it really is simple. When you learn the law, yeah, I mean, it can take some time, but really it's simple. You look at your state constitutions, read all 50 of them. I mean, the thing is, a lot of people will say, I just don't have time. And I say, listen, I don't care. I am a mom who homeschools my kids, has a family to raise. I got 5 kids. I got a family to raise. I know I don't work a 9 to 5, but I sure do work around my house. I'm always constantly doing something. I'm out there instructing government. I'm learning the law. I said, I don't care what you do. Even if you're sitting on the toilet, 5 minutes to read a provision. 5. You can do that, a couple times a day, right? You got it on your phone, pull it up, whatever. Doesn't matter. Instead of playing that game on your phone, that will like suck time out. I mean, not saying games aren't fun, but hey, you can learn something really important in how to stand, so there's that. But what I decided to do and what I'm working now currently on is I am taking every single state Bill of Rights and I'm putting it into a curriculum where I break down all the provisions and put it in layman's terms for everybody to understand. And I'm using all of the historical and law backing and biblical backing to show where it's in the Bible, where it's in the law, where it's always been in the law, where it's always been in the Bible, and how it's literally in your documents. So I'm hoping that blesses the people. It's going to be a big one, I'm sure, because we've got 51, like I said, public trusts to go through. But I think by the time we're done, it'll be worth it. So
that's wonderful. So if I were to buy one of the books, which one would you say that I should buy first?
Well, if you're buying a book for your kids, I think that
they're all in their mid 30s or so. Like I homeschooled my kids, but that was a long time ago. They're all adults now.
Okay, so if you were buying one for an adult, I would say this one here, because this is teaching about petitioning, and this is basically the power behind what we're doing. We learn our power, but then we start writing the petitions, and a lot of people have. They might go, okay, well, I know the law. I'm going to write a petition. But again, like I said, I had a lot of people saying, well, a petition is just a piece of paper. That's all it is, a piece of paper. Just like I keep hearing our Constitution is just a piece of paper. No, our Constitution is a public contract. What contract do you have or do you know that is just a piece of paper? Right? A contract is binding. It's not just a piece of paper.
Right.
It does something. And the words on that paper mean something. So that's why I wanted to make sure to get something out on petitioning our government. And so I would say for adults right now, with what I have, this is the deal.
Okay, I'm buying that one today, just so you know.
Yeah.
No,
okay. Yeah.
I absolutely believe that. And I'm going to say this to everybody that's out there in the audience today. When we have somebody that's fighting for this nation the way Summer is, we have to support her. And I feel so, I talk to so many people and I've interviewed a lot of people. And the question is are we out there just to build our own network and our own voices, or are we actually supporting each other as we grow? Right. So I am absolutely going to buy that book today. And I typically will buy things. I'll typically buy books from the guests that I have on for for interviews and such, just because if we have good people, we stand together, and you can't just keep watching things and not do something. And part of our way to enable people like Summer, who is just boss level, fantastic patriot. I love this. Then, we've got Zach put a link to the book on Amazon in the X chat. So I watch all the chats that are on right now. Good comments from everybody, by the way. So go, I'm going to go and buy that book, and I would encourage everyone to go in there. Okay, let's see. We're into April, right? Is this like pre-Christmas shopping time? I think it's a great idea, or birthday shopping. So if you've got kids or if you've got grandkids and that sort of thing, consider buying these and giving an investment truly into their knowledge going forward, because school systems are not doing it. They're not going to do it. So there you go. There's my plug for Summer right there. And I've never talked to Summer until she got on camera. We've texted. This is typically the way I do things, is that I don't talk to people until they come online, because I want everything to be authentic. Just a normal conversation with someone that you could meet anywhere, right? Because that's when the truth comes out. And I've got to tell you, I have thoroughly enjoyed this time for us talking. I would love for you to come back on again, or sure. some of the other people, anybody that's out there that's on Dave Jose's groups for notices and such. I wouldn't mind doing like a panel and getting it out just to another another group of people, and maybe they would join your group so that you could increase what you're doing, because I really have been watching what you've been doing for a long time, and I would absolutely love to talk, to have everybody or a bunch of people on here and do a panel, so that there's just to educate people on what's possible and how to get involved. I filed a lawsuit last week in the Court of Claims in Michigan. The judge came back and said I needed to add one more thing to it, and it's a pro se suit. So I'm not going to talk about it too much because I can't pollute the jury pool. But there are those of us that are out there that are working, and I think the process needs to be documented so that of what you're doing, what I'm doing to fight for this nation and say, you're done. We aren't going along with this anymore. And you're totally off the rails here, and you don't get to do this to our country as we stand arm in arm. So I appreciate that so much.
Yeah. But definitely, like I said, that's what I'm working on now. I'm also working on and I wanted to bring this up because we have been talking about homeschooling. And there's one thing with homeschooling in the law that most people don't know, or if they do, they're like, I don't know how to deal with it, is I do want to do a course for parents on how to get out from underneath statutory things when it comes to homeschooling, because the government was only given jurisdiction over public matters, not private matters. So when you're homeschooling your child in the home, whether it is curriculum, time you're spending, any of that, right? They cannot regulate you. They are not allowed. They can't even ask you to fill out a paper for registering to homeschool. And I will tell you that I have tried and tested this because I'm a homeschool mom. I did this where I sent notice to everybody in my state, superintendent, everybody, telling them, this is my right. I am not filling this out. Come after me, and there's going to be, to pay. Right.
You're going to see it in court then. And that's great. Yeah. I love it. That's what Jesus did. Is Jesus was a provocateur. He threw it out there and said, try me.
Yeah. I mean, he's sending us out in the world to flip the tables of those who are doing wrong against his people. So I between that and just my makeup, right? I've always been a fighter. But I had done some digging on my ancestry, like I think it was like 14, 15 years ago, and I found out that my great-great-grandfather, 27 times removed, was Robert Morris, the financer. And he signed all three: Declaration of Independence, U.S. Constitution, and the Articles of Confederation. I'm like, well, then I'm meant for this.
It's in your blood. I love this.
Yeah, it's in the blood. It's running through my veins. And, I have such a passion for the people. I don't even have to know you to love you. And I just, like I said, I want to get this to everybody I can, anybody who wants it. So,
well, I'm awful honored and proud to stand with you. This is amazing. And to your point that we do this first and foremost because we serve God Almighty here. And you know what? It's amazing how he carries us. He gives us a job to do and says, I want you to do this. And you're like, I have no idea how this is going to end up. But without seeing the end, you do it anyway and let him worry about how the ending is. It's that we just have to follow what he tells us to do. So are there any last words that you have to say? I always end with a prayer. Would you like to pray, or would you like me to? And
you can pray, but I will. Yeah, you can pray, but I'll definitely, I will definitely say my last words, which to the people is just, I encourage you all to read your state constitutions, to understand that you have the authority under God to do what I'm talking about. And whether you buy my books or not, teach your kids, because it is not born through blood that we get our freedom. It is literally by teaching generation to generation. If we want to get this mess away from our kids and our grandkids, we need to teach our posterity how to stand. And that is where my focus is. It used to be, serving notices to government. I still do that in my quiet time, but now it's the kids need to be educated. They need to know how to defend their republic.
You know, it really stands out after what you said, which I agree with 100%. Oh, like the public schools teaching kids that they have to have their safe spaces, and we got to give them their fat-free cookie and their herbal tea while they, run in a corner as a bunch of snowflakes and refuse to stand for anything because they're all fear-based. Or do we teach them to stand up for themselves? So, I mean, that's those choices we have right now. So we're going to have to do that ourselves. And you've really created some wonderful resources in order to help with that process. And I really, really appreciate that. Let's say a prayer real quick. And then I've got another interview that I have to do on another network at 12. There were a couple of comments that some people have asked, Donna, are you running for governor again? Well, stay tuned. It's like I'm constantly moving in a lot of directions all at once. Right now, my plan is just kind of to sue the heck out of everybody, which is what I've been doing for quite a while here. And well, we'll just kind of see. Everything might have a surprise ending. Who knows? Okay. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very, very, very much for having such wonderful people who are willing to step forward and do, and not just talk, but actually do. And I'm thankful for Summer and all the people that she works with together, sending notices, and David Jose for everything he's done to teach people. And I ask that your favor would rest mightily, and I mean mightily, upon each and every person out there. Give us a voice. Give us the courage to do what you say that you would like us to do. Open the doors for us. We know that you're good and faithful all the time, that you're walking before us and making our path straight. We just got to follow you. And so help us to keep our eyes clearly focused on you. We are only here to be your servants, and to serve this world, and to walk closer with you, and to learn who you are, and to acknowledge the beautiful gift of salvation you gave us through Jesus Christ, your Son, your only begotten Son and our Savior. We thank you so much for everything. I thank you for every single homeschool parent that is out there who had the courage to step out and say, can't do this, and took back their job that you gave them to raise their children. And I ask that you would give the courage to the people who are still in the school systems to really inspect what's going on there, and follow your leading and how to address the situation where they are, whether they leave or whether they're led by you to do something different. We uphold their rights to do as they see fit. And all people, they have their rights as they're following you. Thank you so much for this wonderful day and the wonderful uplifting conversations that we've had today. I ask that everyone would be blessed, that they would know that you are with them, that you care, and that they're never alone. Even when things change and they seem a little scary on the outside, as long as we focus on you, we know that everything's going to be okay. So we've been a great friend to us, and we want to be a friend to you. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, we pray. Amen. So this is such a wonderful time, and thank you so much. I am totally excited about this interview, and so blessed by your presence and everybody that put comments out there. You did have someone, Austin A, bought a book and is thankful for you. I mean, there's all kinds of where can you buy Summer's books? I can't find them. Let me see. Well, I've got a link on Amazon here. Let me see what I can do here. I love it when people ask me to find resources, because I am that person who loves to research, and I research, boss level researcher when it comes to, here we go. We got 16 out of 21 links on Amazon. Ta-da! Guess what? I will put this on my Telegram channel for all y'all. Here is a link on Amazon link. Let's see if I got the right one. So go to my Telegram channel, and you will find it there. And there's a lot of imposters. Okay, there's a lot of imposters out there on Telegram and on all my social media. It's become a chronic problem where people who are trying to knock me out. We actually found someone who was paid $2.4 million to tank my campaign in the last election. Oh, just wait. I'm coming out with another website, because I've written under many pen names over the years. And this one, I'm going to have my name attached to this one. And I will put it out there. So if you continue to watch, you're going to get all kinds of information behind the scenes. Like, oh, I don't know, Dana Nestle's wife, who paid $1.4 million to the signature gatherers. And there's a whole bunch of them out there that were in on this nonsense to take your voice away. You know, I just was willing to not back down, and I'm still not backing down. So to your point, nod, just kind of watch. Well, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with what's going to happen here. But in the meantime, if you keep your eyes on the law fair that I'm doing, I think you might be really, really interested in this, because we don't have to have an office to change things. We can do it on the outside. Everyone can do it on the outside, and that's exactly what Summer's doing. It's what I'm doing, what I've been doing for several years here, and I don't see quitting anytime in my near future. Let's just put it that way. So we'll see what happens, and we'll definitely see what happens. It's like right now, I'm going to continue fighting and in the day by day in the direction that God wants me to go, and nothing's off the table right now. So with that said, everybody, you can go to as my 2022 protest for all the liars, cheats, and thieves who tanked my campaign and made sure I had no voice out there. You can go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. Don't see that stopping anytime soon. And I'd like to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump. And we're going to talk about who did it better in cowboy boots. So that's, I'm going to put another picture up here, because I think you'll enjoy this. If you can give me just a second here, and anything else you want to say, Summer, go ahead and say it. I'm going to throw a photo up there, and I think you guys will find this kind of interesting. Just got to get to it a minute, and I'll throw it up on my Telegram channel. Lots of fun stuff happening. It always takes me a minute to find things. It'll be pretty once I put it up there. Here we go. So click on it. If you're on my Telegram channel, you'll see it. I love this kind of stuff. I just got back from Mar-a-Lago, and that's fun. Nice people there. So there you go. And you can find that on my Telegram channel next to the presidential limousine. And had a good time there. Talked to a lot of good people who are actually fighting for this nation. I guess I just want to restate, don't be afraid. There's a lot of good people that are out there, but more than that, we don't put our trust in people. We don't put our trust in anyone, because people can be compromised, even good people with good intentions. If they are fed bad information and they haven't questioned it enough, they may just have access to just what's right in front of them. They may not have that bigger picture, right? So they may be trying to do the right thing, but they still may be led astray a little bit. That doesn't mean that they're bad people. So there's a difference there. There's very few absolutely good people, and there's very few absolutely bad people. We're somewhere in the middle, and we're just people that are trying to find our way through a very manipulated time in the history of this world. You can't 100% believe anything. You need to get in there, look at the issues, know the law, know what's really going on, and continue to dig, and also be willing to change if more information comes out that proves that maybe we didn't have all the answers and we're still there. No matter how much people think that they know what's going on, they don't. I can guarantee you that. I was with some neuro-linguistic programmers this past week when I was in my meetings. And it's very, very interesting to see behind the scenes, the peek behind the scenes a little bit on kind of what's going on. But what I can tell you is that we need to continue to put our trust in God and know that He's in charge right now. We don't have to be afraid. He's not going to leave us as orphans. We're in an okay spot. So go in peace with your day, and remember, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. Do what God puts in front of you today, just like Summer did. She had her talents and a passion in an area. And so all of us can do that. We can all look into our lives and say, what can I do to help with my skill set, with my knowledge that I have right now? How can I dig into it more so that I can talk to more people? And, even if it's picking up trash outside or smiling, the Boy Scout book, the handbook tells, go outside with a smile on your face, greeting everyone with a smile. Do you know what a difference that would make? Just by being someone out there that's a safe spot and not afraid and smiling through difficulties in life and not being afraid to just charge right in there and going right to the fire. If we can change everything. There's no fear out there. So you guys have a great day. Summer, stay on the line right now. I'm going to end the broadcast and I will see you tomorrow. I've got a couple of interesting people on tomorrow. You're going to have to wait to see who they are. But I'll put it out there in my Telegram at Brandenburg, the number 4 MI. I'll see you tomorrow.